fly in. I long for the days when we have people back in our offices. So hopefully very, very soon we'll be able to do that. So, I also want to say how grateful I am for the work that you are doing around your area, especially over the last year. Because of COVID-19, many of our businesses really were struggling. They needed your support. So you have been fighting, of course, for their economic survival and growth in the communities. You've been continuing to work with the workforce that's out there with the challenges that exist, and you continue to promote those small businesses. So I really, really appreciate that. So thank you for staying strong through a really, really difficult time. Now, I've got a few notes here I'll go through. A lot of different things going on, of course, in the United States Senate, in Congress. When we talk about the workforce, I know that immigration is really important as well. And so what we're focusing on, and I know you do this as well, but finding ways to grow and strengthen the ability of our small businesses to find the workers that they need. And one part of addressing this situation is ensuring that the immigration system is working the way it should be working. And to that end, I'm very supportive of immigration reform that would allow employers further access to the skilled workers. And I've spoken to a number of groups in Iowa that shared some of their experiences and struggles with the different visa programs. So we are tracking on a number of those issues. But I also believe it's important that we have a reliable federal employment verification program like E-Verify that is in place, and it should be then feasible for employers of all sizes and industries. So we do need to update the visa system, as I stated, and I would be supportive of allowing more workers to enter and stay in the United States so long as the program is closely monitored. We do think that that's very important to do that. We need to make sure that it is secure and that the focus is on keeping our state's economy growing. That's the purpose of some of these visa programs. So I'm also in support of funding priorities for institutions like Kirkwood. Very, very important, allowing our Pell Grants to go to our community colleges, but they're also their short-term work-oriented programs. These are really important. Not every young man or woman will go to a four-year institution. Many of them would rather take a short course and go directly into the workforce. So I'm very supportive of that. And then finally, supporting funding priorities and programs for the University of Iowa, and especially our robust federal financial aid programs and research programs at the federal agencies. So we've got a lot going on, a lot of partnerships with the University of Iowa, and I'm very happy to be providing funding for those opportunities. So next, we can talk a little bit about healthcare. And we know that in healthcare, the costs are way too high for Iowans. And for years, a number of our small businesses have been facing some rapidly escalating healthcare coverage costs, and that affects the employees and their out-of-pocket costs, those businesses, and overall then impacts the economy. So the cost to keeping our enrollees healthy each year is continuing to increase. And I imagine we'll continue to see that if there aren't interventions in the system. So you are asking, as small businesses, your employees to bear more and more of that cost, and many of them simply can't do that. So a lot of people are asking the wrong question, though. They ask, how can we fund healthcare? Okay, wrong question to ask. The right question to ask is, how can we fix healthcare? It's because we have inefficiencies within the system. The cost of prescription drugs that is blown way out of control. we shouldn't be funding inefficiencies. We should find what works and stick with it. So we can fix it through transparency, accountability, and increased competition. And all of those things will drive the cost of our healthcare down. So in Congress, some of the things that I've been working on, changes in legislation that holds big pharma accountable. That is really important. Lowers the cost of prescription drugs and ensures that hospitals and health insurance companies aren't unnecessarily driving up their costs. So all of that is extremely important. And then I'll move on to the next topic, and that's one that has been in the news a lot lately, and that is infrastructure. So I know that this is a topic that is top of mind for folks in Iowa and all across the country as well. So both Republicans and Democrats realize the importance of investing in infrastructure. And in the last Congress, I do sit on Environment and Public Works, that committee where most of our infrastructure projects are passed. And last Congress, we came together and we passed a 5-year, $287 billion surface transportation reauthorization bill and a water infrastructure bill, the WRDA bill for 2020. We passed both of them out of committee unanimously, 21-0. Now that's pretty extraordinary. It is rare, even during good times, when Republicans and Democrats agree unanimously on something. So I know there were pieces of the bill that I didn't necessarily appreciate or support. And I know that some of my ideas, the Democrats didn't necessarily appreciate or support, but we came together. We felt it was really important to work through that bill, and we got it done. Unfortunately, it wasn't taken up on the floor of the Senate, so it didn't move ahead. But what we'd like to do, of course, is go back, take a look at that bill again, and refocus our efforts on actual infrastructure, which is what we did in the last Congress. The roads, the bridges, the waterways, the locks and dams, all of that is very important. And we can get a lot accomplished if we do that. Unfortunately, the president's proposal this year, the $2.2 trillion bill, is not focused on infrastructure. It really has become a catch-all plan. It doesn't invest a whole lot in infrastructure, and actually only 5 to 6% of President Biden's Jobs Act actually is dedicated to roads and bridges, things that we typically think of as infrastructure. So it does less on fixing our roads and spends more on electric vehicles. So the Senate Republicans have proposed a bill, an infrastructure package solely dedicated to infrastructure. Again, roads, bridges, waterways, locks and dams, broadband, and it's at a cost of $568 billion, a 5-year plan, and it does give us room to maneuver as we're negotiating with our Democratic friends as well. So I think that we can come together. There has been an indication. There are several Democrats that are leaning more our direction instead of the president's direction. So we'll continue to work with them, make sure that we're coming together. Those talks are ongoing. So we're encouraged by that. And hopefully we will have a package that can be agreed upon and that maybe the president would buy off on as well. So with that, I'll just go ahead and wrap up my remarks. I just really appreciate being with you again today and being able to share some of the initiatives that we have ongoing here in the United States Senate. And with that, let's go ahead and open up for some questions.
Yes, excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah, you touched on all of our most important issues that we're really focused on. And as always, too, I wanted to thank you for your work with childcare, because that has also been, another major issue for us in Iowa and especially in Johnson County here. So, well, with that, Rebecca Needs from Green State Credit Union is first up, and she has a question for us today. We wanted to just dive a little bit deeper into workforce issues.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Jennifer. So first of all, thank you so much for your support for the H-1B visas and the high-skilled workers. Those continue to be an issue for us. But on the other end of the spectrum, we know that immigration gets politicized, but there are certainly a couple bills that have recently passed the House, and I'd like to know how you're feeling, how if you would support the American Dream and Promise Act and the Farmwork Modernization Act. We know that there are certainly jobs out there that remain to be unfilled and continue to be a problem year after year after year, and wondered where you sit on those two bills.
Yeah, and I have not read through those bills. I do want to take a look at the Farmworker Modernization Act. I think that's important, of course, for our ag workers, but I want to know the details behind it. And the same as we move forward with any immigration bill, because there do need to be checks and balances, and E-Verify is very important as we make sure that we have vetted those and that they do have some sort of a status in the United States. And this has become even more difficult right now with the crisis at the border. So, you know, I just have to be honest. I don't know that immigration bills are going to be moving up anytime soon. And this is one of the areas I really wish that I were still on the Judiciary Committee, because this is an area I'd really like to dive into and work with others on these immigration bills. I'm not on Judiciary any longer. Chuck Grassley still is. But we do have to find a way to get more visas, make sure that we're vetting more workers, bringing in qualified workers. I talked to a group not all that long ago, and they are high-skilled workers. They are workers coming in primarily from Mexico that have 4-year degrees or at least 8 years worth of work experience. Very, very valuable to our communities. And there's still some issues with that program as well that we have to overcome. But I will take a look at those bills. I will promise you that. The devil's in the details, and then how we would be able to get it through the United States Senate. But we have to make sure that there are those checks and balances, and that anyone that we are bringing into the country has been properly vetted. But I am absolutely happy to take a look at those. Iowa is one of those states that really, we're not growing our population. We're not bringing as many people in from other states. And so immigration is the one way that we can close those gaps.
Thank you, Senator. And this is just more of a comment. I don't know the answer to it, but as a follow-up, I know that there were issues with E-Verify, and the U.S. Chamber had taken a position opposing that. So I don't know if those issues have gotten worked out, but just to put that on your radar. I don't know enough about it, but I do understand that there are issues with that program.
Right, exactly. And we really need to smooth through all of those and find something that will be agreeable to both parties and move forward. But you know, again, there has to be a balance. So we'll try and find a way forward for you. But thank you so much. I appreciate your interest in immigration, and hopefully we can get through this.
Thank you.
You bet.
Rebecca. Our next question is from David Bywater, who's the president of True Art. I'm sure you've heard this is a legacy business in the Iowa City area that's been around for quite some time. So he has a question for you on healthcare.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate you being here this morning. You mentioned fly-in. I wish we were all riding motorcycles to an event this morning.
I wish so too.
I know that's something you like to do. And Ryan Heyer on this call likes to do so also. I hope you and Ryan have gotten together with that once in a while.
Good.
I was asked to talk about healthcare for just a second, and I appreciate you addressing that earlier. And Senator Grassley spoke very gravely yesterday about healthcare, that it's, for Republicans at least, it's going to be kind of a defensive session, so to speak, related to that. One of the things I'll point out to you as you serve on the Small Business Committee is that in 2015, Congress passed an act called the PACE Act. And the PACE Act was really interesting because what it did was try to clarify part of the Obamacare language, or Affordable Care Act language, that said specifically that insurance pools could be set at 100 persons minimum. And the PACE Act allowed that number to go down to 50, okay? And what we've found is that an insurance pool with only 50 participants in it is where you have to start dealing with experience rating on the insurance side. And when you have experience ratings occur related to major health issues like a cancer or a transplant or a birth defect, all of a sudden those 50 people that are on that insurance pool are experiencing extremely high increases in their insurance premiums. The experience applied to them is, I would argue, completely unfair. In other words, those 50 people end up paying for that occurrence. And I'm wondering if there's any possibility that you could look into changing that. In other words, resetting those insurance pool minimums to a number that makes more sense, 100, 150, 250, or something like that. The idea behind insurance was we were supposed to be pooling our risks and spreading that across a greater population. And at 50 people, there simply is not enough of a population to do that.
Right, and that was why, there was thought behind being able to join associations and be part of an association pool. So that is something that we can look at. I would have to talk with the originators of that bill as well and find out, but it does make sense. And I do know of folks that have been in much smaller pools where there was an incidence of cancer, and the rates went through the roof. And even when I was a county auditor in Montgomery County, we had that experience. And it really did affect our opportunities with those insurance costs too. So yes, I will take a look at that and see what we can do. We'll talk with the originators of the bill and their staff and find out if there are any changes that could be taken into consideration.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
And I'm glad that I heard you mention associations too. I know that has been something that folks have been really interested in. I've heard over and over again, talk of how could we help our small businesses by maybe forming an association that would, we could, pool those folks and provide insurance for some of our smaller employers.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's a big issue. Good luck.
Well, thank you. I know. And Senator Grassley, God bless him. I mean, he's right. We're in a position now where we just see some pushes that would push us into totally government funded, provided healthcare. And I still am very adamant that that's not the direction our country needs to go.
And then up next, we have an infrastructure question for you. So Rachel Kilberg from the City of Iowa City, she has our next question. Here we go.
Thanks. Hi, Senator. Thank you for joining us today and for this opportunity for us to all speak with you. We especially appreciate your leadership that you've shown over this past especially difficult year. So thank you for that. As Jenny mentioned, I'd like to ask a question about infrastructure. It was very encouraging to hear you speak to that. And throughout this pandemic, and with more extreme weather events like the derecho that passed through the state last summer, we're really starting to see some of the gaps in our community's resiliency across Iowa. So my question to you is, what do you believe needs to be in an infrastructure bill that moves forward that will help us prepare and be more resilient for the future?
Right, and so many of those considerations actually don't even necessarily go through the infrastructure package. We really do a lot of that work through the Ag Committee too, especially for states like Iowa, and developing up our conservation programs and making sure that we have the ability to set aside land for wetlands, which is important. The floodwater retaining structures, very important. All of that, and that is funded primarily, again, through USDA and some of our conservation type programs, but there is a place for that in infrastructure as well. So whether you're talking about waterway management, river management, how we're developing our roads, all of those are areas where we can take into consideration the changes that we're seeing in weather patterns, and of course, make the necessary adjustments as we go through the planning process for any new projects. But again, large in part, a lot of that will be funded through USDA. And that is something that we actively engage in. And I am a huge fan of our wetlands projects, because not only have we seen these used by maybe not cities the size of Iowa City, but some of our smaller communities as well that would be more upstream from Iowa City. They have developed certain wetland areas that provide for water to spread out over a significant number of acres without flooding then the communities. So, you know, there's some ingenious projects that are going on. I just spent some time not long ago, of course, with the Iowa Flood Center, and we talked about a number of the issues, but again, primarily the things that we've been working on, and with suggestions from the Iowa Flood Center, they are funded through USDA, and we are actively engaged in those programs through the Ag Committee.
I have one last quick question for you from Dan Kinsey. He's asking about the Clean Slate Act and expunging records for low-level crimes. I know that this is another big issue pertaining to workforce too. So I don't know if you have that on your radar, if you have any comments about that.
Actually, I am the Republican lead on the Clean Slate Act.
Okay.
So yes, so I'm joining in that effort with Senator Casey, who is a Democrat, and there are other Republicans and Democrats on board as well. So this is a really important bill. And, you know, this is one where some that are maybe on more conservative on the spectrum are maybe not in favor of this, but I think it is absolutely the right thing to do. We have many men and women who have been arrested for low-level crimes or infractions, nonviolent. It must be nonviolent in nature. So maybe they were picked up with possession or something like that. But what this would do then is really expunge their record so that is not visible. People are often set aside or not considered for positions when they have these low-level crimes on their record. So what we want to do is get rid of that and make sure that they have an opportunity to compete in the workforce. So I am solidly behind this. I think it's something we need to do. It's very similar to the ban the box bill that I had worked on with Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey. But I really believe in second chances and providing people opportunity. And when people want to work, for heaven's sakes, let's allow them to work. We find too often now where we're struggling to get employees, and we have a lot of really great folks out there. Maybe they made a mistake and it's time for them to move on. So yeah, it's a great bill. We've just introduced it here in the Senate, and I am very hopeful, actually, Dan, that we can get this through.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I know that we're getting close to the end of our time, so I didn't know if you had any closing thoughts for us that you'd like to leave us with today.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes when you hear in the media that, oh my gosh, Democrats, Republicans, all of this stuff going on. But folks, I just want you to know and understand, I'm always an optimist, and no matter what you see in the media, there's still a lot of really great work going on in the United States Senate, and we still do have all of those wonderful relationships that we have really counted on in the past number of years. You know, folks like Senator Casey that I'm doing work with, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, and I will be announcing a bill together tomorrow. So there's a lot of great work that we are doing, and relationships matter, and they matter to me. And here in the Senate, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. You know, if we have those shared passions, we should be working on things together. And I do see that. I continue to see that in the United States Senate. So don't be discouraged, folks. Don't be discouraged with what you see on the media. We're going to continue to work hard for Iowans. I know Chuck Grassley takes that same attitude. You know, you work with who shares a passion. So we're going to continue working for you. And I really hope that at some point soon we're able to come together again face to face. We're going to kick this pandemic and put it on the road, and we're all going to get back to maybe not normal, but more of the normal we used to know.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and your efforts working for us in DC, and appreciate that you do work on the issues and work across the aisle. So that's really important for us. So thank you so much. And I want to thank our attendees for joining today. I want to remind you that we will be meeting with Congresswoman Miller Meeks tomorrow at 10 a.m. So join us for that. We will get to know her a little bit better and share some of our thoughts with her as well. So thank you, Senator Ernst. Really appreciate your time today.
Of course. Thanks so much, everyone. Enjoy your day.
Thank you. Bye.